What's up, y'all? And welcome back to another episode of the War Sheet Podcast. I really appreciate you guys joining me again. Listen, a lot of y'all see what's going on with this whole Diddy situation, I know. And then the 12-All book just recently dropped of Kim Porter, speaking of a lot of things that were hidden from the public for so long. I think it's very important for me to use this platform to spread and to reveal truth and facts, proof and evidence, right? Well, not only in the next few videos that we're going to be dropping is going to do so, but we're going to be exposing a lot of satanic activity that has been going on right under your noses, literally. Let's go on this journey, man. We're going to go ahead and start to reveal a lot of different things that I'm seeing, things that, I've always knew were facts. I always knew was out there, but it never was people didn't really come out and speak up about it as much as they are now. And I say that this whole situation with Sean Diddy Combs and the rest of these CEOs that are resigning from their positions, this is just the tip of the iceberg, y'all. This is a world economic power that has been going on for quite some time. This is the reason why the song or the movie Sounds of Freedom was suppressed for years before it was able to hit theaters. If you haven't seen that movie, I implore you to go and look it up and go and watch it. It's because there's so many individuals who are higher up elites who have been exploiting not only yourselves, manipulating your minds and brainwashing you, but also your children. As the Amber Alerts continue to sound and the disappearance of innocent lives, you got to question yourself more and more. How is this possible? How do we continue to miss a mark? But for now, we're going to dive into this book, and we're going to have some summarizing going on from Kim Porter in her book, her tell-all memoir. So we're going to go to a channel on TikTok. Her name is Amanda Rollins, and she is doing a summary of the Kim Porter's book, which I have not yet read, but a good summarization would be great before reading it. And if you're one who's like me and want to have a good understanding before reading it in depth myself or doing a deep dive in it myself, then join me. Get your popcorn ready. Get your wine out. Do what you got to do. But let's get into it. Let's cue the Denzel.
Is the sheep preaching hate when he says, I'm not going to let the wolf eat me anymore? If the wolf comes in here, next time he comes in here, I'll do whatever I have to do to keep him off my back. Is the sheep violent or is the wolf violent? He wasn't teaching hate, he was teaching common sense. Somebody's knocking you over the head, stop him. Do whatever you have to do to stop him. The ones that were knocking him over the head were afraid of the fact that he might swing back, so they said, now he's teaching hate, he's violent.
Porter's tell-all book on Sean P. Diddy Combs, so you don't have to, and I'm going to paraphrase it for you. Kim grew up in Georgia, and after high school, she started getting modeling jobs, and she knew that she had to get out of Georgia if she was going to make it big, so she moved to the West Coast, I'm assuming to LA. This is where she met her husband, Al. So he was in the industry, they fell in love, they got married at 19, and she immediately had a child named Quincy. She really loves this guy. It didn't work out, they did get divorced, but they stayed really good friends, and he's someone that's still very near and dear to her. Then she meets Sean Combs while they're both working at the Uptown label. He's starting to be up and coming, but he's not like huge yet, and he is super into her. He's making advances. She's kind of like, all right, he's cool. I think they go on a couple of dates, but it doesn't become serious, no big deal. But then they run into each other at an event, and he's putting on the charm. He's sitting down next to her, and he's like, you look amazing, and she's like, oh my God, thanks. And he's like, we should get dinner, and she's like, no. And then he's like, oh, Kim, I think I'm falling in love with you. And she's like, okay. So then they end up going to dinner. Something must have happened after their first couple of dates, because in the book she says he's begging for a second chance and she gives it to him, but she doesn't say what happened. So then they end up dating for real. Like they're together for like a year and a half at this point. At one point, she's referencing how he comes up to her and he's like, please, can you do it for me again? And it's alluding to pegging him. He's like, please, I want you to do that to me again. And she's kind of like, Sean, no, like, I don't want to do that again. And then she kind of makes a sly comment because he's like, oh, like, I want you to blank me like that again. And then she goes, isn't Clive the one blanking you? Clive Davis, implying that Clive is blanking him. And then he slaps her hard. And before she can even react, he's like on the floor being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. She ends up leaving and he keeps like sending flowers and gifts to her house and she's like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. But then they run into each other at an event again. He comes up to her, she's like, get away from me. And then he sits her down and he's like, no, you know I love you, nothing's gonna keep us apart. I love your son, like your son is my son, blah blah blah. And that like gets her because she's like, okay, he is really good with my son. And so she then turns and looks at him and she's like, okay, let's get coffee. She literally says in the book, what the fuck is wrong with me? Girl, don't blame yourself. Then Sean comes to her house for their like reuniting date.
Y'all need to really evaluate what you're doing. Women, if you're being abused, you need to reach out. You need to talk to people. You need to get away from the abuser. Get away from the abuse. Same thing with you men. If it's women out there being abusive towards you, get away from that woman. Don't be with anybody who has the capacity of violence towards you, and especially if it's for no reason at all. If they're a child and they cannot handle situations maturely and talk about it like adults, you need to separate yourself. Let's continue.
He's got flowers. He's like being super good with the kid. Although she does make a note that like he tapped the kid on the butt, like smacked his butt. Weird. He calls a babysitter for them. They go out. The driver is named Gene and he's got a weapon on him and Kim like sees it and she's kind of like, that's weird. And she says like, I'm going to see this guy a lot more I'm going to see this guy Gene a lot more throughout my life. They go out, they have a fun night. I think it kind of involves sexy things. Chapter 5, she says the year passed pretty well. They didn't have any problems, but then Sean is getting into voodoo and he's putting curses on people. Okay. Wow. This is where Mary J. Blige enters the chat. So I guess he starts working with her and then he admits that he's actually hooked up with her. And so Kim gets pissed, but then he suggests, hey, why don't we have a threesome, the three of us? And Kim's kind of like, I mean, she is pretty. I don't know. So they end up having a threesome. She's like, I don't know, like Mary J. Blige is super beautiful. I'm not into women, but exploring my sexuality was enticing, so whatever. Over the years, they brought many other women into their bedroom, so they were kind of like they were open.
Wow.
One day, she comes home, and Al, her ex-husband, is at the kitchen table with her boyfriend, Sean, which is super awkward. And she's like, okay, this is weird. And she says, you know, the awkwardness between all of us had passed a long time ago, but it's still weird that the two of them are hanging out in my home, like her ex-husband and her current boyfriend and the father of her son, you know? And then after they've been drinking, Al is kind of like, you know, we've all been together, just like not together. Like we've all been together, but not at the same time. And she's kind of like, the fuck do you mean? And then Sean and him are kind of like encouraging her to have a threesome with them. And she's kind of like, first of all, this is crazy. And also, like, what if it goes weird? And, like, what about my son? But also, I do kind of love both of you. And, like, it could be fun. Like, I don't know. So she's like, all right, let's do it. And then as it's happening, it's alluded in the book. It's X'd out, but it's pretty clear. The threesome becomes a twosome between Sean and Al. And she's kind of like, what the fuck?
Wow.
So she freaks out and leaves. And Sean's like, babe, come back. It's, like, totally cool. Like, don't even worry. And you kind of gather that, like, maybe this isn't the first time that they've done this. And she's weirded out by this. She couldn't look at him the same for a while. It's strange. And also at this point, she mentions she found a vault where he kept all of his encounters with men on video. Okay, come back for part 2 because that's where Pac and Biggie entered the chat. I read Kim Porter's...
All right, so far, I'll be sure, we got Diddy, the diddler. We got Kim Porter. And those three are in like a love triangle, so to speak. We got Mary J. Blige, who also comes and is also sleeping with the diddler or Diddy, and who's been convinced to do, yeah. So, okay, so part 1 is already pretty crazy, right? Of her just talking about some of the things. Now, I see why he really didn't want this to get out. I can see how and why he would want to set something up to where he would have her executed, or make it look like she may have offed herself, or something along those lines, because it exposed a lot. And at this time, the industry wasn't in the position, still is not in the position to be open and honest about their sexuality. You know, it's been so many things that have come out in regards to the influence of rap music and how the influence of rap music has influenced the nation, has influenced young people in their minds and how they act, right? Whereas to where, you know, back in the day, it progressed, it really went through its phases of change, right? Whereas to where it was positive and uplifting, and it was fight the power and against the man and unity for the community. To now into a phase where it was gangster rap, and now it's time to shoot and kill each other, and you know, or what they wanted to call reality rap, to where, you know, violence against your own community was a thing. And to nowadays time where doing drugs, popping X, popping pills, popping perks, and getting doped up is now the thing, as well as money, cars, clothes, hoes, all of that, right? Rap music has progressed to be something destructive to many communities, not just my own, but it's very destructive to my own community, you know. While European children listen to it and they laugh, right? Young melanated black children are going out and they're actually doing it. This is their life from day to day. They're actually doing it and getting placed behind bars. So there's different ways that it affects the community, and it's just never positive. You know what I mean? So far we know that Diddy has slept with I'll Be Sure, has slept with the other executive as well. The name is slipping me right now, y'all, but y'all know who I mean. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Clive Davis. Thank you, Father. Clive Davis. And this is how he's beginning his career, is sleeping with men. Sleeping with men and with women. He's, you know, bisexual or gay, regardless. You know what I mean? I remember Wendy Williams was trying to come out and talk about his sexcapades or his sexuality, and was fired from a radio show, from a talk show, for doing so, which was wild. You know, he's been fighting hard to keep this part of his life a secret, and now it's being exposed in a major way. Let's get to part 2, y'all. This is crazy, though. It's crazy to hear. It's a tell all. And of course, you know, she mentioned the tapes, right? The tapes that he could you know, that he kept when he slept with other men. You know, allegedly, one of those tapes was Justin Bieber, a young Justin Bieber at 18. You know, a young Justin Bieber who's been passed around from man to man, from man to woman, to all kinds of different individuals. He's been passed around the industry like crazy, and it's just wild to sit back and know that he had his start on YouTube or on one of these platforms and singing and playing the guitar, innocent, very innocent. And to hear about how Diddy was chomping at the bits to get to Justin Bieber, to sign Justin Bieber, he wanted him so bad, and they would not give him to the diddler. So he sent Usher Raymond to go and get him. And they gave him to Usher, in which Usher then sacrificed him to Diddy. It's crazy. Let's get to part 2, y'all.
Part two, this is where Biggie and Tupac get mentioned. So Biggie has taken over East Coast hip hop, and then Sean is basically orchestrating everything in the industry. Like, he's got people helping write rap lyrics, he's got people helping produce beats, and he's working with people who are like deciding who's gonna be the next it person. And Sean is sleeping with a lot of people, including very powerful men within the industry. She says like the names that are like, they would blow your mind if you knew some of these names, and also a lot of people you've never heard of but that are really important in the industry. She also says he started hosting parties with fancy names, which were basically just a way to have.
Could it be the CEOs that recently resigned? Could it be a lot of those individuals? Could it be LeBron James, who has been to many Diddy parties and has been on tape socializing at these parties? Could it be a lot of these individuals who you see are falling away because Diddy has gone down? He ain't the only one, y'all. I promise you, there's more to come. And as they ring him in, they're gonna ring some of the others in as well. Some of the other ones that you think, oh man, yeah, you're gonna be shocked and surprised and amazed to know who's involved in these crazy things. It's happening everywhere, all around you. It's right underneath your feet. There's tunnels that's being where children are being trafficked and moved and essayed and eliminated, deleted, and screams, horrible and terrifying screams. We're going to get to this stuff because this right here is the reason why the world is the way that it is now. Demonic, satanic things like this. This is just the tip of the spear, y'all. It's much more to come. And I know that y'all know this. This is just the industry. The industry, this ain't shit compared to what your next door neighbor is doing. Or what the police officers who's supposed to be patrolling your streets and protecting and serving are doing. Or what the politicians are doing. Or what your garbage man is doing. This ain't nothing compared to all of that. But let's get back.
To have orgies. When she met Tupac, her and Sean were in an open relationship, and she liked Tupac, so her and Sean were in an open relationship. When she met Tupac, her and Sean were in an open relationship, and she liked Tupac, so they would hook up a lot. Her and Tupac would sleep together. But
Tupac
then one day,
used to
things
have a
take
lot
a turn because she's hanging out and Tupac is there and Sean is there. And he knows that they've hooked up. And he basically turns to Tupac and he's like, my baby's bad, right? And Tupac's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, she is. And Kim's kind of like, huh. And then Sean's like, who do you think is better? Like who do you think is like better at doing it to her? And Tupac's kind of like, bro, what? And he's like, let's find out, like, who's better. Like, I bet my blank is bigger than yours. And Tupac's like, what the fuck? And Kim's also like, dude, what the fuck? Super disrespectful. And he's like, yeah, let's see right now. Like, let's see who can make her.
How do you get here? How do you get this satanic? How do you get this disgusting?
Blank the fastest. And like, it seemed like Tupac then says like, are you about to take your shit out right now? And like, it's just bad. Kim's pissed because she's like, you're disrespecting me. Tupac's pissed because he's like, first of all, this is awkward. Second of all, I told you 100 times, like, I'm not into you. Sean kept like making advances. Tupac's, I'm not gonna hook up with you, and this is awkward. So he leaves. He's pissed. Kim's pissed. So then things are very contentious between Sean and Tupac. Like, they avoid each other. He's actually now avoiding Kim as well. So like, he wants nothing to do with either of them, and there's just tension between them. She even said like there was a couple times where it seemed like someone was gonna throw a punch. And then she says one day she walks into the studio in the morning and she overhears the conversation. Sean is having a conversation with who she calls Jimmy the henchman, and what she hears him say is, and I quote, "Pac don't leave that fucking studio alive." And then she says, "I don't think I was meant to hear that." So she just continues like she didn't hear that, and she's like, "Oh, good morning, guys. I'm ordering breakfast. What do you want?" They place their little order.
This is the hit on Pac the first time before he shot the Hit 'Em Up video. He got shot 5 times at that studio. He was meeting Biggie Smalls and I believe Puff at the studio, recording studio. But yeah, let's get it.
Like, right, and she definitely heard it. And as this Jimmy guy is leaving the studio, he says to Sean, "Great, let's make that happen." So like, confirmed. And he says, "I'll make the call." I'm gonna read this part verbatim because I think it's important. I wasn't in the studio the night Pac survived being shot, thank God. From what I understand, Sean and Chris saw Pac at the studio after he'd been shot and did nothing. The way God works. After being shot, Pac made it to the elevator and tried to escape, but it stopped at the floor that Sean and Chris were on. When the doors opened, they saw him lying on the elevator floor, riddled with bullets. The fact that they didn't call an ambulance, although they saw that Pac was sitting there lying, swimming in a pool of his own blood, would be all the evidence Pac ever needed. He, of course, assumed that they placed the hit, and Tupac is a soldier, but this is not something that will be unanswered. Tupac didn't do well. He lost a testicle, but he survived. She says it was orchestrated, and Sean Puffy Combs was the orchestrator. At this point, she knows she's got to get out. So one night, they go to a dinner at a restaurant, and it's like really fancy. It's the two of them, it's public, and so she was thinking this would be a good time to break up with him. But as he walks into the restaurant, he's on the phone with someone. She doesn't know who he's on the phone with, but she hears him say this: "We're gonna release Who Shot Ya now." So they had a song called Who Shot Ya, and he's intentionally releasing it, and it's gonna be Blige making the song.
Yeah, so that's the song Who Shot You. Big is the one doing the response diss record to Tupac's Hit 'Em Up.
Of course they're gonna think B.I.G. was talking about Pac. That's the whole point. Nobody would give a fuck about a diss track against LL fucking Cool J. Do you know how much money we're gonna make with this kind of rap beef? So he knowingly put the hit on Tupac and then knowingly encouraged a song from B.I.G. that would make it look like it was him that did it, so we could make money off of it. And then,
all right, so yeah.
And she's like, okay, maybe now is not the best time to break up with him. And as he's getting off the phone, he says, "We drop that shit tomorrow. There's gonna be blood in the street. Blank, they missed. Pac's alive. Let's capitalize on that shit." When he responds, it's just gonna mean more money. He gets off the phone and she doesn't look very happy, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing." But like, she was intimate with Tupac. She liked him. So she's like, this is not good. And he's like, "Oh, are you sure you're fine?" She's like, "Yeah," but she's like, Sean's not stupid. So she's like pretending that she's cool, but he can tell that something's wrong. So as she's saying like, "Yeah, I'm fine," he takes her hand and he squeezes it until it hurts. And he says, "That's wonderful, because seeing you walk in the office while I was talking about killing that MF and you not saying shit to me had me just a little bit concerned." And he's squeezing her hand so bad that it hurts. Wow. She's like, "You're hurting me." And then he keeps squeezing and he's like, "You're pretending you didn't hear anything was a sign of your loyal to me, not something I should be concerned about, right?" And so she said she had no choice but to say what he wanted, and she was like, "Yeah." And so he let go and he's like, "Good." And then he says, "Remember, I'm the big D." And then he's like, "Great, let's have wine." And it's at this moment that she realizes she's trapped.
She's not going nowhere.
Come back for part 3. Part 2,
Unless
this
it's
is
in
where
the body
Biggie
bag.
and Tupac get mentioned. So
Unless it's in the body bag. She wasn't gonna go nowhere unless it was in the body bag. And that's sad. That's sad to know that she was trapped that way and felt the way that she felt based on a man's lust for power in D. Let's keep it real. He was definitely a raging homosexual. You feel me? It is what it is. But I believe that a lot of the stories that are coming out about Sean Diddy Combs, Mr. Mr. Thousand Johnson and Johnson, Mr. Thousand Baby Oil, Mr. Johnson and Johnson himself. It's a sad thing to witness and hear, to know that people are trapped and terrified for their life. Which she eventually lost it anyway. Based on this tell-all book, she knew too much, and she was ready to expose the diddler, Mr. Johnson and Johnson, Sean Johnson and Johnson, Diddy Combs. Come on now. Wherever they putting him, he deserves to be buried in there in the darkest hole possible. Because this is the reason why a lot of the people that you know, Heavy D, Al B, right? Heavy D, Puff, Heavy D, Biggie Smalls, Tupac. A lot of these people have been murdered and set up for murder. and Diddy Combs have been behind probably the majority of it, allegedly. You know, I believe he has been. But let's get to part 3. This is crazy. The story gets deeper, y'all. Book is sounding real good right now. Definitely worth
Part
the
3,
read.
and if you're wondering why I'm making these videos and not talking about Paris like I usually do, first of all, I'm also interested, and second of all, every person's summary that I've seen online has just been either too slow or like just like not all encompassing, and I was like, oh my god, I have to do it myself, so that's why. It's at this point she says Sean has a bad temper. He yells sometimes, he's roughed me up a couple of times, but he's never like bruised her. And he's never put a hand on Quincy, her son. She says, at that time, I never thought of him touching Quincy in any way, which makes me nervous for what's to come in this book. And then she's starting to think, like, wait, is this all because he's jealous of Tupac? And then she goes on to say, the last time he put his hands on me, it was because I enjoyed Jamie Foxx too much. But she says, well, he enjoyed him too. And he's like, he gets so jealous. Like Sean gets so jealous.
So
So
hold
then
up, wait a minute.
a third person.
Back it up a little bit. So Jamie Foxx and Diddy, the diddler. I mean, I always knew something about Jamie Foxx was a little off, and I knew he kind of was that way, especially when you saw him in that dress and that hat and those heels, and he was doing all that saucy shit. Yeah, I knew he was a little buttery. I knew he's a little saucy. I'm like, yeah, this dude, he fucking gotta be a part of this little buttery shit. And this is before Diddy really started to get exposed. You know what I'm saying? This is around the time Cassie, and let's not forget the Black Godfather passing, right? Him passing away did a lot to the industry. A lot of people started acting very weird and erratic and just, you know, doing some very odd things. I mean, even around that time, I think Young Jock was wearing a dress. You know, things started to be getting a lot more strange after the Black Godfather's death, right? But let's go ahead and continue. Jamie Foxx and the Diddler and also are having a freak off together.
And joins them at dinner, and it's Sean Carter. And then she says, the Seans may share a bed together
Jay-Z.
from time to time, but thankfully I was never asked to join. And then
Jay-Z, y'all.
Sean Carter,
And Diddy.
Jay-Z is like, oh, I thought we were meeting in private. And P. Diddy's like, oh, I wanted to discuss something with her. It's fine, go ahead, yada,
They
yada.
all gay, y'all.
And then Jay-Z says that it's true, Biggie and Tupac were about to launch their own label together. All I can think about right now is how literally notorious the beef
That would've
between
been-
Tupac and Biggie was. The
that'd
beef
have been
never
iconic.
existed.
That would have been iconic for them two to come together and create their own label. What? You feel me? So why not create this whole situation to derail that? Because you need to progress in the industry. You know, you lose one of your best artists, which is Biggie Smalls. That is the end of your career if you don't hustle. You feel me? Or sabotage what was going to happen. Let's continue.
They were about to start a label together. I remember, bro, what? Diddy's pissed about this. He's like, doesn't anyone have any loyalty? And then Jay-Z's like, well, that's not happening now, right? Because he knows what happened. And then Diddy starts getting suspicious of Jay-Z, and he's like, why are you telling me this? And he's like, Chris is your guy. Like, he brought you on, and you're stabbing him in the back. And then Jay-Z was like, first, I'm tired of being his son. I need to come out from under his shadow. And then, like, he's like, okay, I respect that. And then Jay-Z's like, on top of that, this guy's making that move. It should have been with me. Basically, Jay-Z's like, I want his spot. It's about ambition. I want to take his spot. And they have drinks together and kind of agree to be in cahoots together. She then talks about how she meets Kid Data Jones, who was Tupac's fiance, and is like someone in the industry. They become very good friends. And then she meets Kimura. They didn't get jealous of each other. They were truly like girlfriends. She did not become intimate with Kid Data. Kimura was too jealous for that. Kid Data knew that Kimura, Sean, and her would all hook up. Okay. Data and Pac were the greatest couple. They were just cool together, like good vibes. But Pac's shooting and the suspicion surrounding Sean and Jimmy, the vibes between Kid Data and I were not always perfect. Then came that night. Award shows weren't anything new for us, but around the time they were getting ready for this award show, Kid Data was being a bit off. She asked what's up and she said nothing. And then the day of the event came. Data comes over to their table and P. Diddy's like, oh, like Bad Boy's gonna clean up tonight. And she's like, yeah, like they probably will, but like Tupac's gonna win some awards as well. And he's kind of like, yeah, whatever. And then she says, Sean, Tupac thinks you were involved with him getting shot. You two were so close. You need to make this right. And then he's like, why would I have anything to do with it? And she's like, can you blame him? And he's like, hell yeah, I blame him. We had a good thing going, all of us. And then he turned. He's got the balls to blame me for the shooting, blah, 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 blah. He said the way that he could lie through his teeth was like very shocking. Then Kim walks over to the table and says, the whole place is buzzing with the fact that you're sitting here accusing Sean of having Pac shot. Your guys are kind of loud. She's like, everyone knows that Sean was behind it. Because Kidada is the daughter of Quincy Jones, who's huge in the industry, like Sean could not do shit to her basically. So like, if anyone else had said it, she's like, this would have turned.
Now, at some point, Eminem, well, in the MGK, in another song as well, mentioned that Sean had, out on Tupac. So I'm sure, and then he said he was just joking, right? But I'm sure that he wasn't. I'm sure that he knew, as well as everybody else in the industry knew, that Sean did do it. So
Into a brawl, but like no one can touch her.
Not just a coincidence.
And she says to him, you're not safe in the streets, Sean. You think you're untouchable? And then while the girls, so Kim and Kidada go to the bathroom, P. Diddy, there was a picture of a ginger ale on the table that Kidada was drinking. Diddy takes the ginger ale, the pitcher, puts it under the table, and pisses into it. He pees into her ginger ale pitcher. Then he puts it back on the table. And then Kim and Kidada come back from the bathroom. And he's just sitting there watching them, and he's making small talk. And he's like, oh, like, what songs do you think I'll get awards for? And then Kidada pours herself a drink. Sean's bodyguard comes over to the table. I think he stopped her from drinking as everyone else just sat and watched. So Gene is the bodyguard, and he risked getting in trouble with P. Diddy to prevent it, right? Like being like, hey, don't drink that. That's insane. That's actually fucking like that's insane.
He's told the story.
Next, she's talking about one of their wild nights, one of the infamous parties, right? She's like, it was threesomes, we were swapping partners, our sex life was crazy, but I got to do things with him that I would never get to do with a straight man, and he cared about me. So, it was becoming more and more obvious that he preferred men, but he did care about me. Says she wakes up in the morning and left the bedroom where she was with Jada Pinkett, and Sean happened to be coming out of the bedroom with Blank and Will Smith. Yes, Blank attended the parties from time to time. We don't know who Blank is. I could see him and Will kind of snuggled up in the bed together. I was grateful that I wasn't asked to join. I didn't really like Blank. He wanted to get back home to Quincy before he woke up, but Sean was like, no, let's have a talk. And she says she didn't really have a choice because he was getting...
Who in the hell is Blank? Can somebody discover or find out who the hell Blank is? I'm going to have to do some research. I don't know. Who is Blank? Is Diddy? Is Will Smith, right? Which Will Smith was one of my favorite actors, right? Thought he did really well in 7 Pounds, which is one of my movies that I go to. That's like one of my favorites. Thought he did really well in 7 Pounds. I thought he did a great job portraying the role of Deathstroke, and many more. But now it's like all of that shit's a lie, bro. Like, you were somebody to be inspired by. Now you're just a raging homosexual that lies about everything. Your whole life is a lie. It's crazy. You should never put your stock in any individual person. Always bet on self and the Most High. He'll never let you down. He'll never leave you, forsake you. Just keep close to his spirit. Let's keep going.
When he didn't get what he wanted, he didn't really want to fight, so he sat down. And as he's sitting down, this Blank person comes out of the room. Sean's wearing boxers. Blank is butt naked, and Blank addressed them and said, hey, good morning. When he turned around to close the door, there was dried stuff on his back. The person came over, pulled out a chair to sit down next to them. Sean smiling, and he's like, this East Coast West Coast beef is more lucrative than I thought, but it's getting dangerous. And then the other guy, Blank, is like, well, business first thing in the morning, like, crazy, you're crazy, like, why are we talking business right now? Blank smiles, blah blah blah. He says, I can't protect everybody, especially if someone is no longer going to be on my label.
He's
and
a
Blank
record.
says, Sean, are you saying what I think you're saying? And then Sean says, it's taxing on my resources to protect people. Someone that isn't 100% on my team can't get 100% of my protection. Then this Blank person
The Black
says, okay, so
Godfather.
to be clear, if something happened to someone on your team and he made quote marks with his fingers, that leaving your label anyway, it would be considered out of your control. And she's like, wait, are they talking about Biggie? Is Sean saying he won't protect Biggie anymore? She says, at this point, I was too young, too naive, too hungover to realize that what they're talking about is not a lack of protection, but a hit. And she's like, where did this come from? The world was about to lose Biggie. At this point, she says to him, because she decides she has to speak up, she's like, but Sean, he hasn't left yet. They're just rumors. Are you really going to let him die because of some rumors? And P. Diddy replies, I know when I'm being betrayed. I'm not killing anyone, but I am not protecting somebody that doesn't have my back 150%. Wow. She's like, okay, maybe I can play the money card. And she's like, Sean, he's bringing in so much money. Like, you've put so much money investing into him. Like, are you going to throw that away? He's like, if he leaves, he takes all the money I invested into creating him. But if I can't protect him, something terrible does happen, then the money I would make off of his death would blow away all the money we made so far. And he says, he's worth more to me dead than alive.
Wow.
And then this Blank person says, I get that. A lot of people want him dead too. Without your protection, he doesn't stand a chance in Cali. Biggie is going to die. This is crazy. I dare not say anything else about it. Then P. Diddy walks over to a safe behind a picture, pulls out a bag marked with Blank's name, turns to Blank and says, that's why you're worth your weight in gold. You understand me? Here's something for you to take care of your people. And he's like, I love you, whatever. Okay. And so she leaves. Come back for part 4. Part 3, and if you're wondering why I'm making these videos and not talking about Paris like I usually do, first of all, I'm also interested, and second of all, every person's summary.
Like, listen, we this is crazy.
Part 4, and before I get into it, a lot of people are saying that people around Kim Porter have come out and said that she did not write this. Some people are saying that it's like unverified. I don't think any of us are ever going to know, and that's why the FBI is doing what they're doing. But what I do want is at least to have the information. Like, even if it's, whether we find out it's true or not, I just wanted to have the information physically accessible. So I'm not sharing this saying that it's true. I'm just sharing it because this is what is in the book. Okay, she's saying at this point their relationship's not going great. He's put his hands on her like many times, and they're on and off. So one day he calls her and he's like, hey, we've been broken up for a while this time. And then,
a lot of men who are homosexual and undercover, right, on the DL, and not really like, they tend to be very violent towards women. I don't know if it's the image of a woman that makes them frustrated with themselves. I don't know what it is, but they tend to be very violent towards them and abusive. So, I mean, that's just a mark, maybe a sign that you might be dealing with somebody who's having some identity and sexuality issues. Because real men, we don't really do shit like that. But let's get back into it, y'all.
And then he's like, listen, I don't want anyone to know about my proclivities. And she's like, okay, so you don't want people to know about you being gay? And he like loses it. And then he says to her, when you see this in the news, it's not real. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I'm only doing it for the press. And she's like, doing what? And he's like, she knows what this is. She's just pretending to cover me. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, publicly, I'm going to be dating somebody else, a video girl. And it's to like protect his sexuality, I guess. They get into a huge fight, basically, and she's like, okay, you're gay, and she's like, I'm done with you, and they get off the phone. She said for a while she was happy that Sean was out of her life, the sex parties were getting out of control. Chris is still alive, but she's like worried about him, and then she's at her house one day, and Sean shows up to her house. He's like, are you waiting for someone? She's like, no, and she's like, but you're dating someone, I can fuck whoever I want. He loses his shit, he slams her to the ground, pulls out a big boy weapon, sits it on the end of the table, turns to her calmly, and like points it at her, and she's like, please stop, my son is here, like cut it out. And he's like, you're mine, you don't have a choice in that now, I can't live without you. And she's like, Sean, that's not love. But he's like, bitch, I don't care. And then he says to her, this is just for dramatic effect, I would never actually pow you. If I was going to, no one would ever trace it to me. Do you know how many people I've had to take care of over the years? It would be quiet, something in your food or in your drink, something that would never get back to me. I would never pow you. Do you understand? Dude, if any of this is real, this is insanity. But for him to be arrested the way that he is, they must have stuff on him. Like this, what we're about to find out about this man, bro. After this, he leaves. He's sending flowers. He's sending expensive gifts for Quincy. She's trapped. She's like, I don't know what to do. She wants to go to authorities, but she's like, I can't go to them because it's like a gangster movie. Like, how high up does his power go? How high is his reach? Can anybody help me? And then she says, he found his way back to my bed. I had no choice. Then she says, the calamity that ensued behind the death of Biggie shook the East Coast. Sean could have stopped it. He was complicit in it. He was a contributor. He knew it was going to happen, and he didn't stop it, and that was his friend. The song Every Step I Take is really fucked up now. Like, genuinely fucked up. Okay, one night they're out to dinner. When they're back together, they're out to dinner, and Miss Wallace walks up, who is Biggie Small's mother. And she was like, I know this isn't your problem, but things have gotten hard. I was hoping you could send some of the money that Chris made with you. Dude, this is making me really sad. Like, this is so fucked up. And then he says, that's not something I can just do. There's attorneys and accountants. Maybe I can help you with something to get you past the hump. And he goes into his wallet, takes out some money. He says, I haven't even seen how much Chris left. She's like, how long is this going to take? And he's like, I don't know. These things take time. I had no idea that he was withholding money from Biggie's family. And he's kind of like, it's not up to me. It's not it's up to the attorneys. I can't just give you money. She's like, you got rich off of my son. Now you're keeping all of his money. And he allegedly says, at the end of this, Chris probably owed me money. We won't know until it's all worked out. How fucked up is that? So she's going off about the money, and then at one point she literally looks at him and she says, did you kill my son? And she's like, answer it. And he's like, no, of course not. She's like, I don't believe you, Sean. And then Kim says, today I know he was able to muster that false sincerity because he's a sociopath, but back then I thought it was compassion. She then goes on to say, the fact of the matter is Sean was a complete control freak.
Wow.
She says, of all the things he's ever done for control, this would be the worst. They were in the bad boy office one evening, enjoying a meal, enjoying a cigar when Faith entered and sat down with us. I'm guessing it's Faith Evans. She also references that her Faith and Diddy had a threesome. And then she looks to P. Diddy and says, look, when you asked me to hook up with Chris, I understood you needed to control him. I felt honored that you would choose me to monitor one of your most valuable assets. Chris is sweet. And then he's like, I knew that you would be good at it. Make that man feel loved, whatever. And she's like, I don't feel good about this. And then she says, Chris and I had a child together. And he's like, I'm going to take care of you. Like, you don't need Chris. And then she says he didn't have to die. So now Kim is like, does she know about this? And then he's like, no, he didn't. He's like, don't get me wrong, I miss him. But he was leaving me anyway. Nobody cares about my pain. And then he says, I wanted to share all of this with him. He was my man. And Faith is pissed. And she's like, Sean, you have your friends that you share things with. But Chris had no one. He only had you. And then he loses his mind. He's like, that fat fuck. The other pieces of blah, blah, blah. Like, so Sean loses it. And he's like, that fat fuck and the other piece of shit that I had you fuck. And then Kim is like, wait, hold on. And she's like, you had her hooking up with Pac? And then he's like, yeah, Pac as well. Because the two of them are going to start their own label and compete with me after everything I did for them. Like, no way. And then Faith is like crying. And then, like, he's upset and she's comforting him. And he's like, how am I the bad guy? Like, I didn't do anything but bust my ass to make everyone live comfortably, blah, blah, blah. Jesus. Okay, come back for the next part.
This sounds too...
Part 4, and before I get into it, a lot of people are saying that...
Listen, this sounds too... You're just
back in the kitchen and make me some chicken. Don't test me, bitch. Don't test me, bitch.
It sounds too accurate. It sounds too accurate to personalities. It sounds too accurate to what the situation was. Not only was it mysterious the way that Pac and Biggie was murdered, but like it was never solved. Like there was never any closure for any of the families, either of them. Nobody was able to figure out who shot and murdered the both of them. And they just found four guys. And it's still to this day an unsolved mystery that is famously unsolved. Whoever wrote this, if it was Kim Porter or if it was anyone else, they had firsthand knowledge as to what was going on during those times. And if Diddy needed to eliminate, right, or to delete Kim Porter because of her knowledge and understanding and awareness of what the hell was going on during that time, I think that this right here would be the reason why. because it's a lot of condemning evidence, right? And like the Most High says, everything that is done in the dark shall come to light. It's only a matter of time. If you are a person who does wickedness on this earth, who does wickedness to other people, and knowingly doing it and doing it deliberately, your time will come. You may be feeling like that you can't be touched or whatever you feel, but your time will come. You understand? And then once it comes, you can't expect anybody to be empathetic or try to show you some sort of sympathy. You have to just take it just as you gave it. This is crazy. Well, hopefully you guys like these parts, part 1 through 4. I'm going to be doing parts 5 through whatever of the summarization of Kim Porter's memoir. Going to be posting that here very soon, and just giving a bit of feedback in what I believe, you know, what I see, what I'm hearing. This is crazy. This is crazy. I do appreciate, shout out to Amanda Rollins for doing the summarizations. The book is definitely worth reading. And this is the reason why a lot of things have been buried. We got other videos that are coming out as well that's going to expose a lot of the sex trafficking rings, underground things, satanic things that are happening right under your noses, right under the radar. And you wonder why they don't want certain people in office, because they want to continue with their deviancy. They want to continue with their nonsense. They would like to be undisturbed in their wickedness and their satanic practices, and that a lot of you desire to be a part of. We're desperate. Now you can pray and thank the Most High for not allowing you and your talents to get you in this type of mess. Just ask Justin Bieber. Ask Tupac. Ask Biggie. And many others who have suffered at the hands of this satanic industry for far too long. Listen, Worship Warriors, I appreciate you guys joining me. We're going to go ahead and end it here right now. All right, peace and shalom.